Find the exact value of cosecant of the inverse secant. So let me throw that in parentheses just to make it look better. Maybe my parentheses could have been better. Of root 6 over 2. Now, before you start thinking reference angle chart thoughts, before you start thinking unit circle thoughts, you're not going to find root 6 over 2. It ain't happening. So this is what I want to do. I'm going to try to turn this into a right triangle, and I want to think Pythagorean theorem thoughts. First things first, what is inverse secant? What does that mean? Well, that means the secant of what angle is going to equal root 6 over 2 in positive land. What is secant? Well, let's think SOHCAHTOA. Secant is the inverse of cosine. So if cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, then secant is going to be hypotenuse over adjacent. Okay, so root 6 is hypotenuse, so let's draw that out. Adjacent means right next to it, that's 2. And what's going to happen is I'm going to eventually find out that I'm going to have to deal with the cosecant, which is sine flipped. I'm going to need to know information about the opposite side. So let's use the old Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. You're c, I'll call you a, and I'll call you b. So I have 2 squared plus, I don't know, the opposite side squared is going to equal root 6 squared. 2 squared is 4 plus b squared. Root 6 squared is 6. Subtract 4 from both sides. I've got b squared equals 2. Square root it. B is root 2. Which means you are root 2 and you are my opposite side according to the picture that I drew. Now, based on this triangle, okay, I now know what this guy is. So cosecant, based off of this information of theta, cosecant of theta is going to equal the hypotenuse over the opposite side, which is root 6 over root 2, which if I wanted to, before you start thinking, well, why don't I just multiply the top of the bottom? No, don't do that. Let's do this instead. Root 6 over regular 2 just gives me root 3. So cosecant of the inverse secant of this stuff gives me enough information where I can throw it all into a right triangle, do some Pythagorean theorem, get some info, and then find the cosecant of that. Gets me root 3. Kind of a weird problem. You could probably throw that into a calculator and be all right with it. But since it says exact value, I don't know what root 3 is off the top of my head. Some of you geniuses might, but that's what I get.